Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 62nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. I'm your host, Matthew Miller, joined as always Monday night by my co-host, Gerald Goodrich. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. And we might as well just get right into it. Texas, according to the coaches across the country in college football, is ranked number one starting the season. A little bit of a surprise for me, Gerald. I thought we were going to probably be 2 or 3 because that's where I have us, but we ended up number one. What do you think about Texas being ranked number one in this bowl? By the way, for the first time ever.
Yeah, so that was right the first time ever, which is wild because Texas gets this like rep of constantly being overrated, but I guess it's more media poll than it is coaches poll, but that's a whole separate thing. I mean, it just continues to validate what everybody has said throughout the offseason. And I think Texas is one of the more sure teams in a year that maybe doesn't have as many sure things, right? I think when you look at the top 5-ish, 6-ish teams, they are probably the most sure teams that you have. Clemson's returning a bunch from last year. Notre Dame's returning a good amount from last year. Georgia is going to be Georgia. They get the benefit of the doubt, right? Penn State has one of the most tenured and experienced quarterbacks coming back from a team that was a play away from playing for a national championship. Ohio State's Ohio State, right? We know what they are. And then, obviously it's Texas. And, it wasn't really that wide of a chasm, right? I think a couple of votes go the other way. I think Texas had 27 first place votes. Ohio State had like 20. So it's not this like massive, like Texas is the odds on favorite, right? I think what the first place votes really say is that I think the coaches think that Texas, Ohio State, Penn State are all in a very similar group of folks that wouldn't be shocked to be in the national championship picture long term.
We have Penn State Sports Talk joining us, and he said 3 and someone will lose week 1. So, yeah, you'll be 2 in this poll for sure. And I thought, honestly, you guys should be – I'm surprised you guys aren't number 1 or number 2 in this poll. Honestly, if you look most around college football, it's Texas and Ohio, or Texas and Penn State as like the 2 teams being predicted to win the national championship. I think Clemson is probably number 3 in that conversation as well. And then there's kind of a tail off. I have yet to see anyone predict Ohio State to go back-to-back. I don't think I've seen that, and I don't think I'm going to see that.
Yeah, I'd be shocked to see it too. But Ohio State, again, much like what Penn State, Georgia, Georgia, Texas have all done, they've recruited really, really well and put together a significant backfill opportunity, right? We don't expect to have a ton of drop off. And Ohio State, I've talked about it before, has one of those blue shell guys, like I call it, a guy who can change the game in one play on both sides of the ball, right? So I think it doesn't surprise me that they're here. Again, I think the Big Ten is going to be more competitive, more wide open than it has been in a long time. I think for our friend Penn State Sports Talk, I think this is James Franklin's year. It's got to be, right? If it's not this year, then I'm not sure when James Franklin's ever going to get over that hump, because the fruit is ripe for the picking for Penn State this year. I think Michigan's going to be down. Ohio State might not be who they think they are. Penn State is in a really enviable position. And I think James Franklin has to get it done this year, or it's going to continue to plague him for years to come.
Yeah, and when we made a video about is Texas overrated, and we got, a little bit, not too much, honestly, but a little bit of heat on that from some Texas fans. But we both said in that video, because we thought a lot of people were putting Texas as the number 1 overwhelming favorite, not because they're the favorite, because they're almost overwhelming. The vote didn't say that. Like, the vote was very much split. I think 5 or 6 teams got a first place vote. Like you said, Clemson got one, Georgia got one, Penn State got one, Ohio State got one, and Texas got one, which is kind of weird that Notre Dame's ahead of Clemson, even though Clemson got more. That's weird to me, but it is what it is. I agree. I think Texas, I think personally, Penn State, Texas, or Clemson, to me, should be the number 1 team going into the season. I'm not big on preseason polls as it is. I think they should be pushed back into the season because, one, I think they kind of, push everyone towards a certain narrative early on that really hasn't been or shouldn't be allowed, because we haven't seen these teams play football yet. We don't even know what they're going to be. We're kind of guessing on a lot of these things, and especially in a year like this, when I believe, guys, I'm going to say this, whoever ends up being the best quarterback out of Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, those teams, that's because it's going to win the national championship. Because I think all around the rosters are pretty similar, honestly. I don't really see much roster disparity between the top 10 teams. It's going to be the quarterback that's like, oh, damn, this guy actually balled out. That's the team that's going to win the national championship. So I don't know who that's going to be. It's going to be interesting. And I think this is also an interesting question. Every year, guys, the top 10 team falls out of these unranked. They're just not ranked. So, Gerald, out of these top 10 teams, pick one for me right now who you think is going to be unranked at the end of the year. It's happened every year for like the past decade. And I want to know your guys' thoughts on that as well.
I think the one that jumps out to me is Indiana, just based upon like the luck that they had a year ago. Like, I'm not one to doubt Kurt Signetti, but they won a lot of really tight ball games. And as a fan of a team that was tight ball games away from being elite, and then those tight ball games flipped, you can see that going the other way. There's a lot of luck that happens in that. Indiana's one that I feel like is pretty ripe for the taking there. I think I would also, again, SMU, I'm not sure there's not a quarterback controversy this year. They were very close to being an elite team last year. But again, they've got a really tough non-conference schedule. They're playing a bunch of in-state schools early, which I applaud them for, but ultimately like that could cost them. But if I had to pick one, I think really like Indiana's the one that jumps out to me. It's like they were a high variance team, we'll call it, last year. And sometimes that returns to the mean as we get to when we talk about the mathematics of it all.
No, I agree. Like top 25, I think there's a bunch that are going to fall out, but Indiana's one. I think South Carolina is probably going to fall out. I think Illinois, I made my Big Ten predictions on Twitter. I think Illinois falls out as well. But the out of top 10 teams, I think the one that falls out for me, you're good. Man, I want to say Miami, because that's the easy one to me out of those 10 teams. And I don't really see it. Like, the three that I'm thinking of are literally the three in order at the back half, like Alabama, LSU, and Miami. I could see it's really hard for me to see any of those top 7 teams fall out of the top 25. So I'll go with Miami. That's the easy one. What about you, Gerald?
Yeah, of the top 10, Miami's probably easy. I also have this salty feeling that LSU's not going to. I just feel like they are squeezing too hard right now. We've seen that cost them in the past, where Brian Kelly just kind of gets in his own way. He's very much an over processor kind of coach, where he kind of thinks himself into bad situations. We saw it last year when the run was working and they go away from the run, and then Nussmeier ends up throwing a couple of interceptions and things get weird on them. So LSU really jumps out to me as a team that, again, I think coaches that are fighting for their lives in that way, I always feel like I'm generally not a fan of them.
No, I agree. Penn State Sports Talk Texas should make them. They should. I mean, if they don't, it's going to be a really bad season.
That means they lost 4 games and people are going to be very upset.
Yes. Because I think this year you're going to have 1 or 2 9-3 teams get in.
Absolutely.
Just the way schedule's set up. And then also there's really no dominant team. So I have a feeling you're going to get 1 or 2 9-3 teams. And I mean, last year that came pretty close to being the case. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. What about when we get to the AP poll? What do you think is going to be the biggest difference in this one? Let's just stick to the top 10 again. Do you see any big movers there in the AP poll compared to the coaches poll?
I would be shocked to see Clemson in the top 5 when it comes to the AP. I think people are very high on what Clemson brings back, especially on the defensive line. And obviously, Cade Klubnik put on a show in his final game of last year, so people are really fixated on what they were able to do against Texas in that playoff game. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Clemson moving up. And again, you and I have said it before. I really don't think Penn State should be lower than 2 in any poll that we see, and so I wouldn't be shocked to see Penn State at a second or even first place sitting right there, because when we talk, it's a quarterback driven game, and they've got the most experienced, highest ceiling quarterback of that group of top 10 teams. So I wouldn't be shocked if the AP voters rewarded them for that, because again, Drew Aller, of the guys that are in, if you look at the top 10 teams of the quarterbacks who are both proven and NFL caliber guys, he checks both of those boxes. So that would be another one that I wouldn't be shocked to see move up.
No, I agree. I think my prediction is going to be Penn State, Clemson, Texas in some order for the top 3. Just because I already know a lot of the comments made by the media, because a lot of them have YouTube channels now and put their stuff out on Twitter, so you kind of get their viewpoints already. And those are the viewpoints I've seen. Most people are either picking Penn State or Texas, followed by Clemson to win the national championship. So I would assume those would probably be the top 3 in some order.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Again, I made my case for Clemson and Klubnik, and I was listening to Josh Pate earlier today, and he's very much has similar feelings on Clemson and what they're going to do. I Clemson needs to be higher, I think, in the AP poll, and I think Penn State, I would be shocked if they're not in the top 3, if they're not in the top 2 when the AP poll comes out.
No, I agree. That wraps it up for the AP poll, or sorry, the coaches poll being released. We'll also react to the AP poll when that does come out. I believe it's supposed to come out in the next 10 days or something like that, usually about 2 weeks before the season. So season kicks off here in 20 days in Ireland. So that's going to be fun. And it's a good game. Iowa State and Kansas State will be a good football game. So excited to watch that. Let's talk about this. So Texas backup QB battle. I didn't even say QB battle because it's not. We know the starter is, but from everything coming out of camp, it's a real battle. Like Matthew Caldwell's putting in some real work. Steve Sarkisian has mentioned him. I think Trey Owens is also battling. It really shocked me if KJ Lacey is listed for a backup quarterback at all during this year. How do you think this turns out, Gerald? And then do you think it could change going into the season as well? Like the first couple games, it could be Matthew Caldwell, then later on Trey Owens, because that's kind of where I'm leaning, but I wanted to get your opinion.
Yeah, so I've got I don't have sources, but I've got somebody who's been at the media sessions of practice, and they've seen reporting on Trey Owens struggling in some spots and missing some throws that he normally makes and things like that. So I wouldn't be shocked to see if the depth chart was, Arch and then Caldwell and Trey Owens. KJ Lacey apparently has a pretty good command of the offense and is playing pretty well. So I think that third spot we may see, depending on if Owens can get things together. I like Trey Owens. I think he's a baller. He came out and was a baller in the high school playoffs. So I am not going to count him out because he's a guy who just doesn't quit. But ultimately, I think from what I'm hearing and from what again, folks I trust, I have seen that I think, Owens will probably line up at that QB3 to start the year with Caldwell in that second spot, and KJ Lacey probably bringing up the rear. And that's no statement on KJ Lacey. That's just how Arch was the third or fourth guy on the depth chart his freshman year or his true freshman year. So the opportunity for KJ Lacey is still there. And I think KJ Lacey is going to be a baller. Whole other conversation. But ultimately, back to your question, I think Caldwell, Owens, 2 and 3.
No, I agree. So I think early on what's going to happen is Matthew Caldwell, because of the experience, will be QB2. And if we need him to come into an actual real game situation, like hypothetically, I don't even want to put this out in the ether, but I'm going to. If Arch Manning were to get hurt versus Ohio State, I think you would see Matthew Caldwell because of the experience aspect of it. Would it still be the biggest game he's ever played in? By far. He's played at Troy, so this would still be a gigantic game. But you don't want to throw Trey Owens to a situation like that for his first start, but I do expect, like, when we play those 3 cupcake games after Ohio State, I think Trey Owens personally should be the next guy up, because that should be the development for him. You put him in these situations that, we're up 28 plus points and they don't really matter if he makes a mistake. He can go through, get some scrapes, get some bruises, get some learning experience, and actually have real game experience then that he can, lean back on. Whereas I think you kind of be wasting that if you put Matthew Caldwell in that situation. He's been in it, 1. And 2, this is his only year in the program. So I understand if real game scenario, Florida, Oklahoma, Arch Manning can't go, you have to go with Matthew Caldwell. But I think in those cupcake games in between opening SEC play in Ohio State, I think Trey Owens personally should be getting most of those snaps.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm not counting Trey Owens out of the conversation. I think he's a guy who, when the lights are bright, he steps up. I mean, he is the guy who said, "Oh, wait, you've got the top-rated quarterback of all time coming in. Cool, I'm totally fine with coming in and trying to push him as his backup." Right? That's the kind of attitude that Trey Owens has. And so, again, it's early in camp, and I wouldn't be shocked if he got his act together and got his head on straight, because I really like him. There's a reason why Iowa State was going all in on him, because he's a guy who they thought could lead their program into the next era of Matt Campbell football. So ultimately, I think, as it starts, I think you're right. In that Ohio State game, even if he hasn't played at that level, there's something to be said about a quarterback that's had more reps in the trenches going into that type of situation at Ohio State, right? I think getting Trey Owens the opportunity, because I think Trey Owens will likely be QB2 next year as well, in a year where I think Texas probably is more pushing the chips into the center. I think that next year is probably more likely the championship year. So having a guy like Trey Owens who has real game experience, who has those snaps, having him lead the team out of the locker room in the second half, those types of things, that's ultimately going to be great for Texas next year when they're in position, I think, to push again for a national championship.
No, 100%. It'll be interesting in that situation as well. Do they even not even let Matthew Caldwell take snaps in those type of games, and they just like, hey, KJ Lacey, you're going in here because you need the experience? Well, I'm interested to see how they handle this situation because again, like experience with these guys matters. And let's be honest here, with this is with every position group on the team. With those three cupcake games after Ohio State, you have a lot of young guys that you could push out there to get some real reps before we get into SEC play. Because do I think this team is super talented? Yeah, and I think 1 through 85, this is probably the most talented team we've had at Texas in a very long time, if not ever. But it's super inexperienced at certain positions, and I'd like to get them a lot of reps just in case before we head into SEC play. And quarterback, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quarterback league, it's a quarterback's game, and Texas has had been in an enviable position for several years where they've had Arch Manning as your backup, where you've had Malik Murphy as your backup. You've had a guy who, has been and could be a starter at other spots, playing as your backup quarterback. So Texas doesn't have that this year. Also, Quinn Ewers, they don't have Quinn Ewers' injury history to contend with. So that's, six in one, half dozen in the other. But ultimately, I think you're right. You're getting Trey Owens to a point where he's ready and comfortable for next season as QB2. And again, it's early in camp. We're week 2 of camp. Things could shake out, knocking the rust off. There's a lot left to be said.
No, but also props to Matthew Caldwell for coming in and, not, sitting back and saying, hey, I'm getting paid probably a decent amount of money. I'll take this easy. Don't really care. Left Troy. I know I'm not going to play that much. Like, he's pushing these guys, and he's brought in to do that, and he's running the offense well. I mean, Steve Sarkisian is hard on his quarterbacks, guys, and he shouted out Matthew Caldwell multiple times so far. So he's obviously doing a really good job. I'm interested to see, like when he does play, what he looks like, see what he does in the offense, because, I mean, he'll play with way more talented players here at Texas than he ever would have at Troy. So that wraps it up for the Texas backup QB battle. I do agree. I think it will be Matthew Caldwell listed on the depth chart when playing Ohio State. Let's talk about this because I think it's the most interesting battle on the whole team. It's the running back battle. And it's kind of weird because Inside Texas reported one thing, On Texas reported another. Inside Texas basically reported CJ Baxter is full go. He's good. They expect him to play week 1. On Texas has said completely different. Like, he doesn't look the same. And you can see it, the pictures, guys. This guy has a bulky knee brace on. So I'm going to lean towards On Texas on this. I just don't think he's going to be ready to go. Trey Wisner is going to be the lead back in this offense. Who do you think is going to be number 2, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell because we've talked about it before. People are probably tired of hearing me talk about, like, I just have this level of, I don't know, consternation, I guess, about the running back position in Texas, specifically, about, is CJ Baxter healthy? So I think on the depth chart and who gets the snaps is probably 2 different conversations. I think on the depth chart, you'll see CJ Baxter as the number 2 guy. I don't think Steve Sarkisian would make that change or put that thought in anybody's head. But I wouldn't be shocked if, again, in an Ohio State, if Jarrett Gibson doesn't get an equal share of touches, or if it's, Christian Clark coming back from his injury. We don't know about that either. So I again, Jarrett Gibson, maybe if he's not fumbling in camp, then I could see him getting a decent share of touches in that game as well. But if Texas is going to have a run-heavy look against Ohio State, then I anticipate Trey Wisner getting 25 touches, getting 25 carries on top of whatever he does in the pass game. Because if CJ Baxter is at 100%, you cannot trot him out there against this defense and expect it to be an effective offensive outing. And we've already seen that Trey Wisner is good enough for Texas to win these kinds of games because Trey Wisner wasn't the issue in the playoff game against Ohio State a year ago. Trey Wisner is the only 1,000-yard returner in the SEC, right? He is a guy who can play if the game calls him. And I think the coaches have a lot of confidence, and Trey Wisner has a lot of confidence in himself. So ultimately, if CJ Baxter isn't healthy, leave him at RB2. I don't think they'll put him at RB3 on the depth chart just for the optics of it all. So ultimately, I think your depth chart looks like Wisner, Baxter, and then probably Gibson. But if they need a heavy dose of RB2 in that Ohio State game, I may lean towards seeing more Jarrett Gibson than we see CJ Baxter.
No, I agree. I'm just going to say this. People aren't going to like it. I said it last year. I think when he got hurt, I thought there was a pretty good possibility he transfers from the University of Texas at some point, just because this injury is a lot more serious than people are making out to be. And if you've seen the pictures of the guys, I've had people who've had like full reconstruction on their knees in my family, and it's never the same again. It just isn't. They can't cut the same. They can't put the weight on the same. And this isn't just an ACL tear. He tore like every ligament in his knee, and he's wearing this big bulky brace. And I just don't think he's going to play like very effective football for the University of Texas this year, at least the first 6 to 7 games. Do I think he gets some carries? Yeah, I do. But I'm going to be interested the first time I see him cut and see what it looks like, because that's going to tell me everything I need to know where he's at. Whereas like Christian Clark apparently is like, even Steve Sarkisian again said this during his press conference, like modern medicine is amazing. This dude's cutting already, going full speed, and he trusted enough. And that's what everyone is reporting as well. So I think Christian Clark's going to end up leading this team in rushing. I think he's the most talented running back right now that is healthy. I think CJ Baxter is more talented, but he's not healthy. So I do agree, just because the love that Steve Sarkisian has for Cedric Baxter, I think he's listed as the backup running back, but I don't think he's getting backup running back carries probably until like Oklahoma. And that's a maybe for me, guys. Like I'm very cautious with this injury. Just like I'm telling you, this isn't even a normal knee brace. He's wearing like an offensive line knee brace as a running back. That's never a good sign.
Yeah, and I mean, if you say he's not getting significant, reps or even backup reps to Oklahoma, like if they can get through Ohio State with, the combination of Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, then you have 3-ish games that you probably don't need him for, right? You don't need him for San Jose State, UTEP, or Sam Houston. No offense to any of those folks. I'm doing a UTEP preview for my podcast this week, right? No offense to UTEP, but they're UTEP, right? They're 3-9. They have 15 transfers on defense. You're not going to need him for San Jose State. So, like, if you think you can get through Ohio State with Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, whoever is your goal line back. Because I see you, Ben, you're right. We've said it before on this stream that, CJ Baxter's ability to run between the tackles and be a battering ram was a big deal for Texas's red zone offense all year. And so, yeah, I think they don't throw that toss play if they have CJ Baxter in there. They also don't throw that toss play if Texas doesn't have 2 pass interference calls against them in the end zone, right? That's, again, a lot of ifs that happen. But back to my point. If Texas can get through Ohio State with, again, Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson, Christian Clark, give the guy an extra month of rep time, rehab time. Like, give him time to get back to 100%. Because if you rush him back, we saw what happened with Jonathan Brooks in the pros, right? He came back, maybe wasn't 100%. Instant re-injury, and he set back even farther. And so that, to me, is for anybody's worst case scenario. So ultimately, if you're not confident in him 100%, don't send him out there. Period. End of sentence.
No, 100%. I completely agree with that. It was around a year ago this time Clark tore his Achilles. Yeah, I mean, he's made, from every report, it isn't the same. Like, everyone's been saying glowing things about his recovery. And I said last year, just looking at him, his body type, his film, I thought he was one of the 2 best running backs on the team. I still think that. I think he's going to lead the team in rushing at the end of the year. That's how good I think this guy is. And it sucks about CJ Baxter. It really does. And I do think Trey Wisner is going to be the lead back for most of the season. I think Christian Clark will eventually take it over, just because he's able to run in between the guard and the center a little bit more. That inside zone, he can run a little bit more effectively. And I think you're going to see that more this year. I mean, they're already talking about Arch Manning taking snaps under center more. So this is going to be more inside zone, play action based team. And I think Christian Clark plays in that offense more than Trey Wisner does. Will Trey Wisner still be a really good player for Texas? Yeah, he'll be one of the 2 leading backs, in my opinion. But those are my 2 leading backs for right now. And hopefully, I'm hoping, because CJ Baxter does unlock something his offense desperately needs. And if he gets healthy, then I think Texas can win a national championship. But yeah, we'll have to see about that.
And it's just wild. Like you mentioned Christian Clark's Achilles injury. We're like 10 years out from Jonathan Gray's career being completely derailed by a similar injury. Right? Jonathan Gray had that catastrophic Achilles injury, and he was never really the same. Re-injured it a couple of years later and never really saw anything happen for him at the professional level. Christian Clark is back a year later, right? Like, it's just modern medicine is incredible, the things that they can do.
Yeah, it's weird because Achilles used to be like Dominique Wilkins is the one in the NBA where it literally ended his career. Like, you can look at it, he fell off a cliff after he blew out his Achilles. And then guys like Kevin Durant have one, and they're just as good as they were before. Christian Clark's right back on the field. That's like everything other than knees, honestly, like really bad knee injuries. it's hard, man. That and back seem to be the two worst injuries you can have in professional sports. You just consistently can't get over the hump for whatever reason. Eventually, it will be solved, but for right now, it's not. Let's move over to the wide receiver battle, and I don't even think this is a battle. I think your top 4 wide receivers are DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, and Parker Livingstone. Which, if you would have told people a year ago Parker Livingstone would be your 4th best wide receiver on next year's team, I think they would have laughed at you. But he is blowing people away in camp, guys. And those are the top 4 that get mentioned the most. He's the top 4 being mentioned by the media, the coaching staff, everyone writing things or talking are mentioning those 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's what, 6'4", 191, and a track kid from high school. Like 6'2" and can run, a sub 1,200 meter dash. Like, it's hard to keep a guy like that off the field. He's super talented, incredibly, big target, big body. Again, it's very much, it's not like I'm trying to think of a good comp for him, but there's not really a good one because he's so big. He came to Texas at 6'2", like 170 something. I think he's listed at like 6'4", 190. So like he's put on good weight, but still is super fast. Like he was a track kid in high school running at 6'2". He's that same level of athlete. So Parker Livingston being on their like it is not the name I was expecting, but it's not an unexpected name, if that makes sense. Like everything about him says, yep, that makes sense, but it just wasn't the guy I was expecting to hear be the guy. So I'm excited about this group. I think Emmett Mosley is going to be a phenomenal player for Texas this year. I think he is a guy who fans are going to love him by the end of the year. I mean, we know what DeAndre Moore is. We know who Ryan Wingo is. I think this group, it's going to be a really fun group for Sark. And you haven't even mentioned the tight ends. You're going to mention the tight ends in a minute. That's going to even add another additional layer to it of what Sark is able to do, because Sark loves running 2 tight ends. So 2 tight end sets with, a couple of 3 wide receivers out there. You're going to have a fun time doing some interesting things with the offense.
No, and I think you're going to see a lot of go balls for Parker Livingston, a lot of deep posts for Parker Livingston, a lot of deep overs for Parker Livingston, especially a deep over off of play action. I've seen Peyton Manning run a lot under center. I think you're going to see a lot of Arch Manning running that under center, and I think Livingston's going to be the big target there. I think Ryan Wingo also fits really well with that. Whereas DeAndre Moore is kind of your, 10 to 15 yard intermediate guy there, and Emmett Mosley as well kind of fits in that category. But I think Ryan Wingo and Parker Livingston are going to receive a lot of deep balls in this offense, a lot of attention, taking safeties with them as well when they're not being thrown to, just taking the attention over the top of the defense. So I'm excited. I'm interested to see, the battle starts for me at the 5th wide receiver. I don't know who that's going to be. That's usually kind of where it ends for Sark too. He really only goes with about 5 wide receivers per year that get like any amount of run. I think that's probably, if I had to guess, going to be Dalen McCutcheon from everything I've seen. I don't think Michael Terry really factors in right now. I don't think Khalil Lockett factors in right now. People want to say Aaron Butler. Really haven't heard much of him. So I do think it's going to be Dalen McCutcheon as that 5th wide receiver that, probably catches 15, 20 passes at most.
Yeah, and this is going to be – I wonder if Texas has a 3 and a cliff this year, maybe instead of the usual 4 and a cliff that we see, just because there are especially with what we know about Jordan Washington. I'm not trying to get too ahead of my skis because we're going to talk about that next. But ultimately, I just see Sark, who already loves to run 2 tight end sets, running as many 2 tight end sets as he can with 2 or 3 wide receivers out there. So there are only so many balls to go around. So if it's, Wingo, Mosley, Moore, and a cliff, or it's, Wingo, Mosley, Livingston, and a cliff, I'm not sure. I don't imagine it's not DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo at 1 and 2, but whoever that 3rd guy is, and then a pretty significant drop off. Just again, because of the options and Sark's proclivities and how he likes to run his offense, we could see that as well.
No, yeah, I don't think Texas can win a national championship if it's DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, and the cliff. I think we definitely need a bona fide number 3 there. Like, no offense to Moore and Wingo, I don't think they're Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell and then a cliff type players. Like, I was cool with that because you have 2 NFL wide receivers and one of them's really damn good, and I believe just broke the yardage record in a Super Bowl. So that's fine with me, but I don't know if DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo we can get away with if that's 1 and 2 and then there's a drop off.
Yeah. And I don't think, I think I think there's a legitimate 3rd in there. I just don't know who it is. Having 4 and then that is going to be interesting.
Caden, we appreciate the super chat. The wide receivers against Ohio State's defense in Georgia are going to get locked down, and Arch is going to get sacked multiple times. Hey, we'll have to see. We appreciate the super chat, though.
And we've and just to that point, we've said it before. I wouldn't be shocked, and Matthew, I think you agree with me, that that Ohio State game, that first game, I think it's going to be lower scoring than people anticipate. I think both of these defenses are going to have a good time against new quarterbacks, have a good time against some offensive lines that are being reworked. The strengths of both of these teams are on the defensive front, and so I think they're going to have, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 21-17 situation or a 24-21 situation where we don't see a super high scoring game where it's a last man with the ball win situation. So, and again, Georgia has Texas's number. Texas is like there's no other than, hey, we'll see in Athens, and Georgia has Texas's number.
No, I agree. We might as well kick off the tight end conversation. Benjamin brings up a really good point. In the spring, Sark gushing over Emery Winston, interesting height and weight, 261, 260. Yeah, that's beefy. Also, watch out for freshman 5-star Khalid Glock and tight end Nick Townsend, who enrolled this summer. Yes. So we might as well talk about the tight ends. And I think it's a really, really deep and talented room. Again, the problem is experience here. There's really only one guy with experience, and that's incoming tight end Jack Andrews, who I'm on record, I think is going to have the best season in the history of Texas football for a tight end. I will continue to say that because I believe it. I think he's going to have a really, really successful season. And that's kind of, the past month has been getting stamped by people who have watched practices and interacted with the staff. They like what they've seen from Jack Andrews a lot. They're talking Mackey with him, which means the best tight end in America, which I could definitely see. I think he's super talented. But after that, it gets interesting. Is it Spencer Shannon? Is it Jordan Washington? Is it Nick Townsend, who has also been talked about a lot, brought up without being, prompted to? He's being talked about as special teams and tight end by Jeff Banks. So who do you think ends up being tight end 2 here, Gerald?
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk. Jordan Washington was another guy who was kind of brought up unprompted by Steve Sarkisian in their comments. Jordan Washington is up to 264, playing a 6'4", 264. That's a big boy. And I think the only thing that's going to keep Jack Andrews from winning the Mackey Award is that if Jordan Washington plays up to the level that I think we've wanted to see him play for multiple years now. Jordan Washington is a guy who came in with a lot of expectation from guys like me who were kind of recruit nicks who've seen and looked at him and are like, hey, that guy's got a lot of, what you want to see from a frame. And he got some run even when he was a little bit smaller and a little bit less consistent. The easiest way to get on the field as a Steve Sarkisian tight end is to be an elite blocker, right? And that's one of the things that I think Jordan Washington bulked up to do, right? You can't, mass moves mass, period, end of sentence, right? I did powerlifting for a while, and that's part of mass moves mass. And so being at 264, being able to come in and be an inline blocker while also still having and retaining some of the speed and athleticism that got him to that, right outside of the top 250, he's got the ability to be a difference maker for the offense. So I'm pushing my chips in on Jordan Washington. And again, I've said it before, Steve Sarkisian loves 2 tight end sets. So being able and having the flexibility of being able to put Andrews and Washington on both sides, have an extra blocker, create numbers advantages as they're trying to establish some of the running game. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because he comes in as like more of a pass catcher, and then he puts on 45 pounds. So I don't know if he's able to retain, that athleticism that he does have. That's a lot of weight to put on that frame. And he has the frame to put on weight, but I was thinking more 245, 250. And I think it's this. Jeff Howe said this, and I think it's the best question someone could ask about this is Spencer Shannon going to be good enough of a pass catcher to get on the field, and is Jordan Washington going to be good enough a blocker? Whoever answers that question of those two is who will be tight end number 2. If Spencer Shannon can catch the football average for a tight end, he will be in there because he's a really good blocker. If Jordan Washington can block average for a tight end, he will be in there because he's a really good pass catcher. I don't know who's going to answer that question. I do agree. I'm more of the Jordan Washington side of this thing because I think it's easier to learn how to block than it is, just all of a sudden become a great pass catcher at the tight end position. I think that's kind of a little bit harder thing to do personally, but we'll see what Jeff Banks thinks here. Now, at the end of the day, I think Nick Townsend at the end of the year will probably be tight end 2 because I think that guy's a freak, and I think he can be kind of the best of both worlds.
And here's my I don't know if you need to be the elite athlete at tight end in this offense, right? Because as good as Jatavian Sanders was as a pass threat, my biggest issue with him was how his inability to block, right? He was a liability. Like, let's just go ahead and say it. Where Gunnar Helm played at like 250, 252-ish, I think, last year, and was an elite tight end and got himself drafted. Now, I'm not saying that Jordan Washington or Jack Endries are going to be that kind of player, but Gunnar Helm has shown that you don't need to be this elite, explosive pass catching athlete. He was consistent. He made the easy catches. He made the hard catches look easy, and he got extra yards when he could. And that's really what you need to be as a tight end in this offense. And so, again, like you said, I think it's easier to learn how to block. I think one of Jordan Washington's biggest issues, frankly, probably was size. He came to Texas a little bit undersized to be a tight end in this offense, or at least to be an effective tight end in this offense, because you have to be a next level kind of athlete like Jatavian Sanders to be able to be in that spot. So ultimately, I think I would much rather have a guy who maybe he is a step slower than he was at 220 or whatever, but I'll take a step slower and still able to catch the ball and put your mitts on it. And now you have the mass to block an edge or a linebacker off the edge to set an edge for your running backs who are trying to find a zone seam.
No, I agree. And I will say this. I think Jack Endries will get drafted higher than Gunnar Helm, and I think he'll have just as good, if not better, of a season. I think I'm really high on him. Like, I'm going to just keep saying it until it happens, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Just wait. I'll be the one that was driving this train. I said it before anyone else. I'm #1 fan club. I need a shirt, but that does it for the tight end battle. And let's get to this one. Unfortunately, some sad news today for this battle. Going into camp, we thought it was going to be Nick Brooks versus Brandon Baker. Then all of a sudden last week, they said, no, it's actually Kojo versus Brandon Baker. And Andre Kojo, unfortunately, Saturday did have some type of season-ending knee injury. So we'll see what happens. Apparently, though, Nick Brooks is now getting first-team reps at the right tackle position along with Brandon Baker. So, I'm more and more concerned about this position. At the beginning of this offseason, I said left guard. I'm really not concerned because I've heard very little, which to me is good. That means Umlazulu has won that battle. There's really not much of a discussion there. But to me, Andre Kojo getting hurt and then immediately Nick Brooks is getting first-team reps, and Brandon Baker, no one has said, hey, this basically solidifies the job. That to me has shown Brandon Baker has not, sealed this thing down, which is not a good sign for me, at least.
Yeah, and that is concerning, and I think it's, as somebody who has been vocally a Brandon Baker supporter, it's not great, because again, when you hear the guy he's competing goes down, it should be okay. That solidifies him as your #1 guy, and so Texas ultimately is still looking for its best starting 5. Right? Normally, going into a season, you're trying to find your top 8, top 7, at worst, and Texas is still shooting for 5 at this point, which is not great to hear. I think Brandon Baker will be fine. I think Brandon Baker or Nick Brooks will likely be fine in this spot. But losing Kojo is a guy who, again, Texas now needs to find another swing player, another guy who can play multiple spots. Is it I can't even think of who it is, right? We mentioned
Jaden Chapman would be the guy.
Jaden Chapman, I guess. Yeah, but Jaden, I feel like Jaden Chapman probably is still a year in the incubator. It needs to be a year longer in the incubator before he's called upon. It's that to me. I've been not concerned about the offensive line, much like you, but I think now we're getting to a point where I'm like, that right tackle position is something to be said. I'm just going to say it. Texas also went to a college football playoff and was a couple of plays away from a national championship with a question at right tackle, right? Cam Williams got drafted, but Cam Williams also was a liability in a lot of spots. So that's something to keep in your back pocket, is that if the rest of the line is good enough, it's something that you can maybe, cover up or kind of kick some dirt over in some spots. So I'm still worried, but I ultimately think Kyle Flood is a good enough coach to get it figured out. Again, week 2 of camp, maybe some clicks in Brandon Baker. Maybe, I don't know if it's a Nate Kibble situation. I just don't know who the guy is right after that. It's concerning.
No, for sure. Yeah, it would have been, if Kojo doesn't hurt, they battle. Whoever loses that is probably your swing left to right tackle. And then Connor Robertson, I said this last week, and he's been there a while. He's going to be your first guy off the bench if someone gets hurt from left guard to center. Like, he'll be your center, right guard, or left guard. So we're good with that position. But, yeah, the right tackle, it's thin now. If he gets hurt, it's Nick Brooks. And there's really no after that. I mean, let's not even talk about it. It'd be really bad if that happened, if he gets hurt. But yeah, it's Nick Brooks. Jaden Chapman's going to be your swing guy. I think if you have two guys get hurt on the offensive line, tackle and center, let's say, he'll swing between either right tackle, left tackle. He can play all over the offensive line other than center, really. And it sucks, Andre Kojo has battled his ass off to get to this point to where we didn't even think he was really competing. We thought it was Brandon Baker and Nick Brooks, and he's right there competing, and unfortunately gets hurt. And I think there's a really good chance he would have won this job. I mean, clearly Brandon Baker has not taken this bull by the horns, and
yeah.
It's going to be interesting, guys. I don't know what to expect from this right tackle, but you brought up a good point. Cameron Williams was not that great last year at the right tackle position in most games. Either made a really bad holding call in unopportune time, or he got a false start call at an unopportune time. And, I really wish he would have come back. We talked about this. It would have benefited everyone involved if Cam Williams came back, because he would have gotten higher up on the draft boards and Texas would have had a returning starter at the position. But it is what it is. I do expect Brandon Baker to win this job at the end of the day, but I'm not going to feel confident when we go into week one at the right tackle position playing Ohio State. I'm just not going to feel confident there.
No, I'm with you there. I got nothing else to add, right? I've said it already. I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest in week one.
Yeah, and it kind of like the whole offseason up until about 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, I'm kind of worried about the left guard. I've heard nothing about Neta Umuzulu at left guard, which is perfect, which means he's not competing. He's won that job. He's going to be your left guard.
No news is good news.
Yeah, exactly. And then right tackle's just been question marks, injuries now. I have a feeling that's going to be the position we're going to be like, damn, that position has kind of haunted us this year, which, listen, everyone on every team in the country is going to have one or two positions in the top 10 of college football that is going to be like, damn, that's a real weak spot. Unfortunately, I do think that's going to be the right tackle position for Texas this year.
I'm not. I've been there already. Yeah, I'm with you. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that does it for the Texas fall camp battles on the offensive side of the ball. We'll hit on defensive side of the ball later. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This is the 62nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Also, guys, check out the Amazon link in the description. It is free, does not cost a penny, and puts a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket. And as we speak,
you can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
Also, guys, if you know anyone that would like to sponsor a show on the network, does not have to be ours, please check out this message from one of the partners with the Michigan channel, the Win Agency. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand in the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market audience. Check out the experience of one of our current partners, the Win Agency, posted on the screen. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that as well. And let's jump to our last topic of the evening, which is the Jake Krell recruitment. I know some people have pronounced it Kroll. It is Krell. That is how you pronounce the last name. He is down to Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Texas. Texas is pushed a little bit here lately. He is the number 63 player, according to 247 Composite, the number 9 edge from Bradenton, Florida, 6'3", 230 pounds. What do you think of this player, Gerald? You're muted.
I'm trying to think of a good comparison for him because he's not the guy who's going to like show up and wow you with the physicals. Like we think of like Lance Jackson, who came on campus last year, which is like, oh, he looks like he's 35 already, right? That's not who Krell is. He's not that like massive physical freak. But when you watch his tape, he would come to campus and be one of the more polished, more game ready from a skills perspective, right? When you think of defensive linemen, you either have guys who are skills ready or size ready, and he would be a skills ready kind of guy. IMG has gotten him right. He is somebody who's very, very effective based on the technique that he uses. And I'm not sure about where Texas stands in his recruitment. Texas has been pushing, but his camp has really done a good job of playing it close to the chest. I think he wants to, make visits in the fall, I believe is what the reporting is now. So being able to get to Texas in the fall, Ole Miss and OU. For guys like him, I think he's looking to see where he's going to fit in next year. He's a guy who wants to probably come in and play pretty early, again, based on his level of development. So if Texas looks like, Burke is going to leave, or you've got guys like that are going to open up, then I think that puts Texas in a better position. Whereas I think there might be, and again, based on how Texas has recruited at the spot, there might be a cleaner path to the field at OU or Ole Miss, because Texas has done a pretty good job in these last 2 cycles now of recruiting the edge position. So Texas has a lot of talent there already. But ultimately, like I said, what I like about his game, he is one of the most technique-ready defensive edges I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I think he's somewhere between Lance Jackson and Smith Orogbo from the last cycle when it comes development-wise. Lance Jackson, I think, will play right away. I think Smith Orogbo is probably 2 years. I think Jake Krell could probably come in and pass rush like right away. I think he could be your third down guy. You put him in there, go get the quarterback. I think he's going to have to work on, stopping the run, shedding also bigger guys, just because he's not the biggest guy right now. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, needs to put on about 20, 25 more pounds. But he's a really good player, and it is going to be interesting because I don't think Texas pushed here really early because they were in for bigger players like a Richard Wesley, who they landed, like a Trenton Henderson, who went to LSU, who they're still going to try and go get. And then does he want to play like super early, which I think most kids do, but they can be talked out of it if you have a good plan for them. And I think Ole Miss, honestly, that's where he plays right away. They just don't recruit at the same level as a Texas or an Oklahoma at least used to recruit. It'll be interesting here if Texas really, really pushes hard here, because I think if they truly want this guy, they'll end up getting him. Because I mean, they have more money than an Oklahoma or an Ole Miss, and they can push development here because Texas has developed better than anyone basically the last 2 or 3 years along the defensive line. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job at development along the defensive front. So Ethan Burke, good chance he's gone after this year. Lose a couple interior guys as well. But we'll see. I think he's a really good player, and I think Texas would be lucky to have him. But he's not in the Trenton Henderson. He's not in the Richard Wesley. He's not in the Devon Benjamin, unfortunately, just went to Oregon. He's not in that type of mold on the defensive side of the ball, but I think he's in that next tier below. I think he's a really promising football player.
Yeah, and I think, again, if Texas pushes for him and it's an NIL deal, I think Texas lands it. But ultimately, he seems like a kid who's looking to find and take his time and find the right fit, find the right opportunity to play early. I think he wants to be a 3-and-done kind of guy, and that's okay, right? You got one career. You want to get to the NFL as quick as you can. He's already very, very developed, so he doesn't need a ton of that coaching. He needs to come in and really get his body in the right working order. So wherever that is for him, I think Texas can push it and get him in the right spot, because they've done that and they've shown it, and they've got skins on the wall now at this point.
No, 100%. It'll be interesting if they decide to push here. He's also taking, most people now, guys, get this stuff done before August. Like August 1st, you see, if you look at the top 250, a lot of these guys have already picked their homes for the next 3 to 4 years. He's kind of, gone through the whole season. I mean, there's talk he may push this thing all the way back to September, October, which is going to be interesting. And yeah, no one really has a good lean here. Oklahoma seemed to be the early favorite because they were pushing the hardest. Then Texas joined, and now it kind of feels like Texas, but this is pretty close to the chest. This is like Felix Ojo close to the chest, apparently, because we didn't know where he was going until like 16 hours before he decided to go to Texas Tech. But we'll see what Texas decides to go, if they decide to go all in here.
Yeah, it's a lot to come.
Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 62nd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so please share, subscribe, like, send it out to all your friends and family. Have us join us here Monday night. Keep the comments coming in. Also, guys, we're doing a Tuesday show every night, 8 p.m. Eastern time as well, so please check that out. And also check us out on Twitter. Here is Gerald's Twitter in Blue Sky, as well as his Longhorn Pod, which you can check on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. Same as the Voice of College Football. Just look it up. You will find it. Like you said, Gerald, you have what? The UTEP game coming up previewed?
Yeah, UTEP preview this week. So look it out. It'll be out on Thursday.
And then you can follow me right there on my X account as well, Matthew MS97. I really appreciate you guys doing that. And as always, hit the like button, subscribe, and hook 'em, guys.
Hook 'em.